First up in this half is James Nelson Lucas, and I know he has lots of fans out there. James is a very versatile performer. You notice that he is dressed for the games in his very own kilt. So really nice. It's not one of those fancy cheat sheet kilts, it's a utility kilt. This is a man who's going to do stuff. You know? He's not going to just stand around looking fabulous. He's going to do things. But I do know that James is part of Clan Grant, who were early proponents of Robert the Bruce. And I will tell you one other thing I know. Please welcome James Nelson Lucas.
Hello, hello. All right, so we are at the Scottish Highland Games, but oddly enough, I'm going to start my story in Ireland. Well, you see, there was a man we now know as Saint Columba. He was a very famous Irish priest. He had traveled all throughout Ireland, opening abbeys and monasteries. He's one of the most widely read men of his day. He was said to have miraculous powers. He could heal the sick, he could calm storms, and he could foretell the future among many things that he could do. He was very highly regarded all through Ireland as a fine, holy man, but it happened that believe it or not, he got into a little bit of a copyright dispute with his boss, the earthly one, not the holy one, which resulted in several deaths. And as a consequence, his boss sent him away from Ireland. He was so highly regarded he was not going to be excommunicated or killed. They banished him to Scotland to bring Christianity to the Pictish people. So this is about 580. He had spent years traveling through the lowlands of Scotland and the highlands of Scotland, and he found himself at one point way up in the north to meet with the Pictish king Brady. And Brady had a beautiful castle on this lake up there. Oh, the area he was traveling in Highlands, I don't know if you know what it's called, the Great Glen. And you might recognize the Great Glen as the place where two continental blocks have come together, and you can see across the top of Scotland there's like a cut right through the middle of the top of Scotland. That is where the Great Glen is at. He was there speaking to the Pictish king and meeting with the Pictish people, he and his acolytes and travelers along to bring Christianity to the Picts. Now he had heard the story that there was a water monster in the lakes and rivers about there. Now this was a very old story because they found, about in the 1800s, a Pictish stone right near that spot that had carved into it the Pictish serpent, a monster of unknown origin. So these stories of the monster were very old by the time Columba had got there. He had heard word that the monster had been sighted. The creature had been seen. He had some Pictish guides take him down to the river and show him where it happened. When he got down to the river, he found some Pictish men digging a grave, and there was a man's body mangled on the shore. We had just barely time to pull him from the shore. He'd fallen out of the boat, and the beast gnawed into him and killed him instantly. We just barely were able to get his body out from... Well, St. Columba was looking at that little tiny boat. I don't know if you want to call it a boat. It's basically a big basket with leather on the bottom. It's a little tiny fishing skiff you use in the rivers and lakes. And he thought, the family, they've lost a man, but they're going to certainly want that boat. That's a very valuable boat. So he sent one of his acolytes into the river to get the boat. Go forth and get the boat. Now the Pictish men, they were too terrified to go in the water at this point. But the God-fearing man, he went into the water to grab the boat. And he was paddling across the river. There was a sudden roiling of the water, bubbles and waves, and then the beast came out with his great head and looming over them. And St. Columba, being a man of God, and he probably knew this was happening, he's a prophet after all. "Stand back, beast! Leave the man alone and retreat quickly in the name of the Lord." And the beast did. Dived down into the waves. We don't know if it's the Lord that scared him, but it was several hundred years before anyone mentioned the monster again in any kind of written form. That was the very first time it was written down when St. Columba's life was about the great beast, the aquatic beast. 600 years later, 200 years later, another explorer, Walter Bingham, they called him the Marco Polo of Scotland, and he traveled all throughout Scotland. And he too was way up in the north there in the lands of the Pictish kings. They were dying out at this point. Lots of Celts and Vikings were moving in, and the Pictish were on their way out. But he was there. He was there at the river, and he saw the beast in the river. It came out and ate a man. Now, it had been 600 years since St. Columbus said, go away. It ate a man. They say the beast came up out of the water, and with eyes flashing with fire, grabbed him in its jaws and dragged him beneath the surface of the water, dead. That river, by the way, that he was on was the River Ness. Yeah. Now, about this time, around the 13th century, the clan called McWilliams built a castle there on the spot where King Bray, they had his castle generations before. Now, there was wars, and uprisings, and all kinds of blood, and, you know, Scotland, the clan wars and stuff. Yeah. So it was 1509, after Castle Urquhart, as it's now called, and it was in the lands of Urquhart. It's the lands surrounding Loch Ness. So Urquhart, in 1509, after all this hubbub and blah, 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 the grants were given, the clan grant were given the property from the east coast of Scotland almost all the way down the Great Glen, which is where you find the Loch Ness. And they owned all of that land, the grants did. They tried to take good care of it as they were, but still wars and fighting and Jacobites and uprisings, and Castle Urquhart was captured in the beginning of the Scottish Civil War. Very historic spot there. And as the fighting was going back and forth, the clan grant, they were on the side of the Jacobites? Not on the side of the Jacobites. On the side of the Jacobites? No. So eventually, when they were not on the side of the Jacobites were about to take Castle Urquhart. So the grants blew it up. Now, if you've seen the pictures of Castle Urquhart, if anybody's seen any picture of Loch Ness, you see the Castle Urquhart. That is the iconic castle right there on the lake. And the tower there that you can see that's still standing is called Grant Tower. So the destruction is not because it's thousands of years old, it's because we blew it up. So the Jacobites were again. So, grants were running the property. It has been hundreds of years, again, until anybody mentioned the monster. But during that time comes into play my namesake, Sir James the Good. He had inherited all these lands from his father. He brought with him, these people had just gone through the clearances, and there was a famine on, and he, with his own money, brought in grain from far away to feed his people. He brought in new civil engineering plans. He brought in, he just modernized the way the North operated, and the people loved him. But no monster. No monster was written down for many, many, many years until about the 1800s. That's when it starts creeping back into the written record. And you hear the little visit, oh, I see a sloshing water, I saw water. There's different kinds of things, but it wasn't until the AB1 road, I guess it was rebuilt, and it runs along the northern end of Loch Ness. Sightings boom. 33, there was 3 sightings in 1933 alone. The photograph, the second photograph ever taken is the one that everybody recognizes as today, as the preeminent. So in the generation since the 20th century, photography, they brought in sonar, they have brought in bathyspheres, they have Apple Earth actually, Apple Earth actually has a picture, they say, is of the Loch Ness Monster from the satellites. So but the 20th century, we saw the monster an awful lot. They started the monster information center, the visitor center. Now, if you go to the visitor center, right there is at our Loch Ness, our clan crest is right on the building. Tapestries of the guy I'm named for right up on the building down there. And then when I was there in 2013, when I was there in 2013, it turns out that was just 3 weeks after a very famous, I don't know if you, my mother and I tramped around Scotland for a week. It turns out just 3 weeks before we were there, somebody took a 5-minute footage of the monster. Now, we went to the visitor center, and everybody in the visitor center, the whole thing is just, the monster doesn't exist. There's not enough food in there, the lake hasn't been there long enough, and just the whole scientific proof, one after another, there is no monster, and then it goes right in to the gift shop where you buy all your monster stuff. So why am I telling this story tonight, the Loch Ness Monster story? Well, as my namesake, James the Good, was well beloved, saved the economy of his people. And since he is my namesake, I'm going to tell you, I think there is a monster there. And I recommend all of you go to Loch Ness, to the visitor center, take a nice cruise ship, and help us bring billions of dollars of money into the economy because of the monster. Even though there are monsters all over around Scotland, this one was on film. It's our monster. Bring the grants some money. So that's it. My clan grant. Come save the economy of my people in Scotland and visit Loch Ness.